the iPhone 4 and the Samsung Galaxy Core Prime. Two phones that are so different, the only similarity is that you shouldn't attempt to use either in 2020 if you actually like yourself. Anyway, I'm APR2K Productions. Let's compare these two vastly different phones and see which one's better. So we'll start with the boot up test as usual. Turning each on, the Core Prime has to go through the carrier logo as well as the Samsung stuff, whereas the iPhone is just going to be on the Apple logo the entire time. Now to get specs out of the way so I don't have to deal with this later, the iPhone is running an A4 processor at 800 megahertz with 512 megabytes of RAM, whereas the Core Prime is running a Snapdragon 410 at, I believe, 1.2 gigahertz with 1 gigabyte of RAM. So the Core Prime does win in terms of actual raw power behind it. And that is shown here as it boots up much faster. But when we look past the actual performance to design and materials, it's not even a comparison. The iPhone just completely blows the Core Prime out of the water with the stainless steel and glass design. It looks very nice. It's a whole seamless design, integrated together very well. It's well crafted and well built. The Core Prime just feels cheap, plasticky. It's just nothing compared to the build quality of the iPhone 4. And that makes sense, obviously, but the iPhone 4 is the clear winner in design and build materials. While the Core Prime has a much bigger 4.5-inch display, which is much better to use, honestly, in real-world use, the iPhone completely destroys the Core Prime here as well, with a much better resolution. This is 480 by 800. It's really bad, whereas the iPhone is 960 by 640, which is actually a fairly respectable resolution. It's not great, but so much better than the Core Prime's display. We've already talked about specs, but now we're going to talk about the storage capacity. So the Core Prime has an 8 gigabyte internal storage capacity. Most of that's used up by the software. And the iPhone, my iPhone 4, has a 16 gigabyte internal storage capacity. However, the Core Prime can be expanded using a micro SD card up to 64 gigabytes, which is much better than the iPhone, which can't be expanded at all. And some iPhone 4s are 8 gigabytes as well. So I'm actually going to tie these two on here because my model has more storage, however, your iPhone 4 may not. And now to the software that these two are running. My iPhone 4 at least is running iOS 7.1.2, as well as the Core Prime is running Android 5.1.1 with TouchWiz on it, which is exactly what the problem is. This software is terribly bloated. It has all kinds of T-Mobile junk on here, and most of it you can't even delete. Whereas the iPhone 4, it's just loaded with the apps that I put on here, or, well, my mom did a long time ago. But anyway, so the Core Prime tends to open some apps faster than the iPhone 4. However, the software is a lot less responsive, in my opinion. The iPhone 4 does work. It's just slow, but so is the Core Prime. But the iPhone's much more responsive, I'd say, so I'd choose this one for the software. I did give software to the iPhone 4. However, with the Core Prime, more apps will work. Google Photos and Instagram, for example, and YouTube are all going to work on here, whereas on the iPhone 4, they will not work or will be very glitchy or unresponsive. So I'm going to give it to this because these apps all do work. They're not super fast, but they do work. So app support is much better on the Core Prime. However, the overall software experience on the iPhone 4 is better. But for app support, I'm going to give it to the Core Prime because more apps still do work in the Play Store than do on the App Store on iOS 7.1.2. What about the cameras? Well, I can't tell you super well because my iPhone 4 camera is screwed up. Yay. Neither camera is particularly impressive. They're both 5 megapixels and can shoot 720p video at 30 FPS. So pretty much 2010. Neither takes particularly great photos, though I'm going to say the Core Prime is better because it gives you so many more options in the camera app versus the iPhone 4, where you really don't have that much customizability, and that touchscreen is going to kill me. And of course, as you'd probably expect, the selfie cameras absolutely blow. I mean, the Core Prime's is better, it's 2 megapixels versus VGA on the iPhone, but they both suck. I mean, there's no way around it. And of course, the speakers blow on both of them. I mean, did you really expect me to like either of them? This one's a tiny speaker facing towards the back, and this is just a small one facing towards the bottom. The iPhone 4's is better. It's a little bit louder, a little bit better audio. They both suck. The battery life, I have to tie these two because you can actually remove the battery out of the Core Prime. However, the battery life is pretty bad. I mean, it's pretty freaking bad. Now, again, it is removable. The iPhone 4's battery life is better. However, the iPhone 4 definitely is worn down over the years. I'm going to tie these two because the Core Prime's removable, but even when it was brand new, the battery life was pretty bad. And obviously that's still held true because it only gets worse. So I asked the person who gave me this phone, what use is it? And they said, I don't know, a flashlight. So time to prove that theory. This is the control group. This is my iPhone SE. This is the iPhone 4. And this one is the Samsung Galaxy Core Prime. Tell me which one's the best. And lastly, to score yet another point to the Galaxy Core Prime, it has a way better connectivity port. Connectivity on the Core Prime is going to be much better because you have micro USB as opposed to the proprietary 30-pin lightning cable that Apple makes you use. Actually, last one. Okay, so the ergonomics on the iPhone 4, I must say, are much better. I didn't really consider this, but this is actually pretty important. The Core Prime is it's not thicker, but it's just not designed as well. So it's not as comfortable to hold as the iPhone 4 is. And the iPhone 4 is also smaller, so you can get a better grip around the phone, which is really important in my opinion. And yeah, so the iPhone 4 definitely wins here. Alright, so before we announce our winner, what is better about each phone? Well, the iPhone 4, it's got better ergonomics, it's got a better build quality, way better materials chosen, a way better screen than the Core Prime, as well as better stock software. And what about the Core Prime? Well, the Core Prime is a bigger phone, which is always a nice plus. It has better internals, which are faster than the iPhone 4's internals. The software has better app support, though I do like the software on the iPhone 4 better. It is much more supported over here, as well as better cameras than the iPhone 4. Alright, at last, I have to make a decision. Who's our winner here? The iPhone or the Core Prime? The Core Prime. It wins in a lot of categories. Now, it isn't that great of a phone, and I would never even think of using one of these. Just because this phone won this comparison doesn't mean it's a good phone. It's still total crap. The iPhone 4 it was good, but it's past its prime. Get it? Okay, I'm not funny. Anyway, so the Core Prime is slightly better than the iPhone 4. However, again, neither of them are that great. So don't even think about using one in 2020 unless you really hate yourself and you want to torture yourself for some reason. There's probably better ways to do that, you know. For example, use an iPad 2. That's probably a better form of torture than using a Core Prime. So yeah, anyway guys, that's about it. I hope you all enjoyed, and as always, peace out everyone.